Thank you for joining us for today's virtual Expo showcase, Enabling Mobile Credential-Driven Experiences on Your Campus. I'm John Ogle, Membership Engagement Manager for NACU. Joining me today from Transact is Scott Dennison, Senior Director of Product Management. Scott, I'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone very much for your time today. We'll spend a few minutes to talk to you about how you can enable a mobile credential-driven experience on your campus to improve your efficiency and also to impress your students. Today, I'll be presenting. Again, my name is Scott Dennison. I'm in the product management team at Transact. And normally Austin would be presenting with us here today. Unfortunately, he had a 3-hour flight that turned into a 30-hour adventure and is running a little short on sleep, but still, this is important. He joined us anyhow. So I will be presenting today. As I think many of you are well aware, the mobile credential has benefits both for students and also for staff as well. Students have very quickly gone from mobile desire to mobile first to almost mobile only if they can. I think we've all seen instances where teenagers, like some of my kids, would watch a movie on their phone, even though there was a laptop and a TV nearby. They really prefer to do everything they can on their phone. And that's certainly the case, I think, for a lot of your students and for young adults. But also in the last year, I think the social distancing has really increased the needs for self-service. And that gives you both the operational efficiency and the safety when you're running your card office. And that's one of the benefits of mobile credential to help both students and yourselves as well. Rather than hear me talk too much about this, though, what I'd like to do is play a 4-minute video from one of your peers, Mercer University, where they can talk a little bit about their mobile credential experience on their campus and how it benefited them. So I'm going to go play this quick little video so you can hear Mercer University.
Mercer is a historically Baptist college. We were founded in 1833 in Penfield, Georgia. Around 1877, we moved to Macon, Georgia. We also have campuses in Atlanta, Savannah, and Columbus, and regional academic centers around the state of Georgia. We have 8,850 students currently enrolled at the university.
As the world is shifting to be more technologically advanced, we have to do that. You know, there is an art and science in enrollment management. It's very competitive, there's no question, and students more and more are expecting the next thing, you know, whatever that happens to be.
Being able to move to a mobile credential on a smartphone was huge. It was what students were asking for. Because of the forward thinking of Transact and their readers were forward programmable, we were able to move to mobile credentials in both Apple Wallet and Google Pay.
A lot of students have iPhones, a lot of students have Android devices. And if you serve only part of your students, you're not really doing your job. You serve them all, then everybody's happy.
I was extremely excited about this. Having served on the Student Government Association, I knew that students wanted this. Students have been advocating for this.
I think having mobile credential is a really great option, especially I think it's great to be able to have it not only on my phone but on my Apple Watch as well.
It is very cool to use my watch with the Transact mobile credentials. It's super convenient if I have a lot in my hands. I get mail or I get food and then I'm like carrying it all around, so then I just tap my wrist and I can go into my dorm, my building, things like that.
It's all about customer service. The more things you can do for students on their phone, the happier they are. So it seemed like a good idea, and it turned out to be an even better idea than I dared dream in the beginning.
Due to COVID-19, we mandated Transact mobile credentials for all incoming students to our campuses to reduce the lines and promote safety for both the student and our faculty and staff. Mobile
credentialing in this time of COVID was really a blessing to us. Without a mobile credential, we'd have had 900 students lined up out the door. And in COVID, that's not something you want to do. The mobile ordering, that's allowed a lot of students to place an order and then show up and pick it up without having to stand in a long line.
Students are able to use their mobile device to place their orders at our Chick-fil-A, Panda Express, Einstein's, etc. They can place their order, select a time to pick it up, and then go pick it up from a designated pickup area. At Mercer, we looked at the state and federal guidelines for reopening campus, and our experience with Transact has been able to play into that, not only with a mobile credential, but we've also been able to use our Transact system to do contact tracing for the few numbers of COVID cases that we've had on our campuses. Gosh, I really don't want to think about how we would have managed COVID-19 without mobile credentials. It's been so instrumental in our success here at Mercer.
We're up significantly in terms of enrollment. And part of that, I think, even in the middle of this pandemic, is our ability to say, you know, Mercer, you trust us to provide a safe environment for you, and one that is, even when we're all a little uncomfortable, we're going to make it as convenient for you as possible.
We began the process years ago, working with our client manager with Transact to make sure that we were well positioned to move forward to the NFC technologies.
And you can't turn technology on just by throwing a switch. You've got to be looking down the road, you've got to be seeing where things are headed. If you invest in good technology, it always pays off. Transact Mobile Credentials is a great example of that. We expected to get good benefit. Thanks to Transact Mobile Credentials, we've gotten great benefit.
All right, so there you have it from Mercer. And also, if you're interested, there are a couple of other videos from some other institutions that have implemented mobile credential, including the University of Oklahoma, Santa Clara, and also University of Alabama. All of those are on our website if you'd like to view those and maybe share those with some of your other internal stakeholders. Also, Jane Brooks, Alabama, gave a great idea. There was, I think, a great best practice and also a little bit of testimony to mobile credential. At Alabama, for incoming freshmen, they put out a test reader as part of the orientation process. And they have the students present their mobile credential to the test reader. And the nice part about that was she said they very frequently hear students say, wow, neat, that's cool, and give them some real positive feedback when they see that work for the first time. So that just gives a little bit of affirmation to that's a product that students are really seeking and really value. Also, again, don't listen to just us. There's a number of other universities who either have or are in the process of deploying a mobile credential and have had their own great experiences as well. So you see a list of some of them here, and I'm sure that many of them would be willing to give you some feedback on their experiences. So a little bit about Transact in the mobile credential. I'd really draw your attention on this slide to three big things. Transact was the first company to create a mobile credential that went in the Apple Wallet in 2018, and then we later released it in the Google Wallet as well in 2020. So the mobile credential works on the iPhone, the Apple Watch, and also on Android phones. So that covers the vast majority of the use cases of your students. The second thing is there's a number of mobile credentials out there now. And many of them are for door access only, and there's great value in door access. But we recognize that in a campus environment, you need the credential to work for financial and other payment transactions as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit in an upcoming slide. And the third point is that NFC, or the near field communications technology, has some really big benefits here when combined with the Apple and Google wallets. And that benefit is the tap and go experience. So what that means is that a student or staff can tap their phone or their wallet to a reader and get basically the same experience as they would have with a secure card. And you don't necessarily need to unlock your phone. There's a setting for that called Express Mode that allows students to present their locked phone to the device, and the reader will read it in usually a second or less. So it's a great tap and go, very quick experience. So it's really a great user experience for those using the mobile credential. Also, from a Transact perspective, this isn't something new for us. We've actually been working on NFC and mobile technologies for about 10 years now. So many of you have been with us on this journey where we released a number of devices that supported NFC starting back as early as 2010. And we really appreciate all your support in there. But also, I think that level of development was necessary to develop something as revolutionary. And also, it's given us a great deal of experience over the years how to make that mobile credential work very, very reliably with a variety of different readers. Because again, that user experience is critical. It needs to be fast, it needs to be secure, and it needs to be dependable. So here's another screen just to, again, to illustrate the value of the Google Pay and the Apple Wallet and the iPhone compatibility. Again, this allows virtually all of your students to use that mobile credential on whatever their device is. But it's not good enough just to let you indoors, even though that's valuable. There's a number of other use cases on your campus that we've worked to make the mobile credential support. Of course, dining at the bookstore, print copy, vending, and others. So I think that's a very key point about the Transact mobile credential is its ability to support all of your use cases on campus, not just some of them. As an example, though, of hardware compatibility, I've got 2 slides here. This shows you at the top left, you can see some of the leading brands of wireless locks and door readers with which we've worked to make the mobile credential compatible. So that means your students can use that credential to get into their residence unit, into the residence hall, doors, buy something, etc. And at the bottom too, you see Elitech readers. Elitech is a very common brand of readers that go into print and copy machines, and they have partnerships with most of the leading print and copy manufacturers. They also have integrations with common print management software like Pharos and Papercut. So by partnering with Elitech, we're able to allow your print service provider to buy a reader that can integrate typically into or nicely on top of your printer or copier and tie back to the stored value service, so the mobile credential can be used to buy print and copy services. We've also integrated with a number of the leading vending reader manufacturers that you see on the right. And that also allows us to partner with a lot of the leading vending service providers out there, the Coke, the Canteen, the Pepsis of the world. Again, this makes the stored value system that works on the mobile credential useful across more and more of the points that your students use on your campus. Also, we announced last year that we are partnering with HID, which is the largest manufacturer of door readers in the United States. And we can now announce that we are compatible with their Signo series of readers, which is their newest series that they released, I believe, at the beginning of this year. And also, we're close to having integration with their multi-class readers. So many of your campuses may have their multi-class series of readers on your campus. And this is a great opportunity to enable mobile credential while replacing less hardware so that it accelerates your implementation and lowers your cost. Also, one thing that we've recently released is something we call access control integration. And what access control integration, or ACI, is it's a SaaS-based vendor agnostic API that allows door access systems to integrate into the mobile credential system. And doing this allows them to do 2 basic things. Number 1, we can send to that access control system in real time updates on students and also their credentials. So if a student tries to provision their credential while they're walking across campus, we have the capability to send that credential to your access control system in real time so that it works when they arrive at their residence hall. Secondly, this also allows your access control system to send us some of the credential events that are necessary for reporting to Apple. So we can automate and take care of a lot of that reporting functionality that's required and do all of that by simply having your access control system integrated through ACI. So these API points that I've mentioned are live and running today. And the next step in this development journey is that we're in discussions with some of the leading PACS providers and also a third party to form that last mile integration. So instead of writing a custom integration to your access control system, we would like for you to be able to use an off-the-shelf one. So again, that's work that's underway now and is kind of the what's coming next in ACI and mobile credential. Lastly, on the product side, coming soon, it's not released yet, but in the near future, you'll see announcements about our crisis hotline display in a mobile credential. So on the screen in the green box, you see an example of a couple of crisis hotlines being displayed actually in the wallet of the phone. So when you open up your wallet and you see the front corner, you can flip that card over and look at the back side, and that's what you see on screen. And the interesting thing about this to me is that because this is conforming to federal and several state laws, they have various timelines for rollout. And by being able to put this into a mobile credential, we're able to help you meet that requirement with a software update, not even one you even need to install, one we simply develop and provision for you. And we're able to add that functionality in without you needing to perform a complete recard project. We understand those are very difficult, expensive, and time consuming. So this is just one way that we can help you be more responsive to your needs on campus by using a mobile credential. All right, with that, I will turn it over to Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So we have a couple of questions that came in through the chat and then also through just direct as well. We have one from Brian. So when the time comes, like to know whether in person or online, how is a student provisioned? And it's kind of a concern for them in the kind of looking at the same way that the standard orientation kind of line works.
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. So we've got some slides on that and coming up here shortly, so you can see the actual mobile phone experience that a student would go through. And then we can talk about that in a little more detail about it from an administrative perspective as well.
Awesome. And then, so we saw the Mercer University video. Can you give maybe another example of how one of the Transact clients using mobile credential kind of supports the campus branding and how it supports student retention?
So in all cases, we allow the credential and the associated eAccounts mobile app to be branded by the school. We certainly encourage that, and I think that's used pretty universally. So that's a great branding experience. Also, in terms of student acquisition and retention, we strongly recommend that you incorporate the mobile credential into your campus tours and your prospect videos to show them that you're being responsive to their desires to use the current technology and to have a mobile first experience. So definitely encourage you to incorporate that into tours, into promotional videos, and even just make a quick reference. I think that's something that a lot of times the young students often look for and pick up on pretty quickly. So it doesn't really take much time, just a quick little mention, and I think that'll be caught upon pretty quickly.
Great. And then one final question before we move on. Transact right now has over 50 plus mobile credential schools. Is this something that you're seeing more and more campuses going to mobile credential only and really kind of replacing the typical plastic campus card? And is there talk amongst campuses about going to that mobile credential only environment?
Yes, what we see is that it's very common that once a campus has implemented the mobile credential, they've kind of got that internal, the proof of concept works, they've got it deployed, they can see, gain that confidence that it works wonderfully. Then we see that the policy often shifts to mobile only with some exceptions. So I've got a slide on that to give you some numbers and show you what other schools have experienced. But yes, we do see very commonly that schools will shift to a mobile only experience for credentials, only using plastic ones by exceptions. And with that in mind, one other question I see we have is there's a question about what do we do when students that don't want to use the mobile, but they do want a plastic card. And that's a matter of policy for schools. You can mandate that students must use a mobile credential first unless there's extenuating circumstances, such as not having a compatible phone. Sometimes there can be religious objections to the technology. So I definitely encourage you to craft a policy around that so you can be consistent on when to use it or not use it. We've also heard of schools saying that if you would like to have a plastic credential in addition to your mobile credential, there's a fee associated with that because obviously there's material and labor cost involved to go and make that credential for them. But typically, for security purposes, schools will be one or the other. You'll either have more mobile or a plastic. Otherwise, there's a lot of credentials floating around that can be used in ways that you may not necessarily want. All right, so moving on here just very quickly. As I think everyone is aware, Transact has a number of products beyond mobile credential, including for payments processing and point of sale. But this is just another example how because those products are used across a wide swath of your campus, the intent with the mobile credential is to make it useful all the way across your campus, not just in a few locations. So here in the red, when you see the privilege management, that's our intent, is to make that mobile credential capable of being a complete substitute for your plastic credential. And that means it needs to work for all your different stakeholders across campus. So in regards to the question a moment ago about policy and adoption, here's some example numbers that we've seen from schools who've adopted a mobile credential. And what you see is that the adoption rate by freshmen is extremely high. And even the adoption by other students, and in some cases staff, also is very high. A lot of this reflects both the popularity of having a mobile credential product, that's what students look for, but also the policy of the school. If you as a school mandate that freshmen must use a mobile credential, and also all card replacements must be mobile, except when there's extenuating circumstances, you'll find that the adoption rate will be extremely high. And even if you just start by introducing it to your freshmen as mandatory and make it optional for others, I think you'll find that a lot of students will want to move to the mobile credential naturally because it better suits their user experience expectations. So you'll see, I think, a pretty steady trend of natural organic adoption just once it's out on the campus. And besides, what senior wants to not have something cool that the freshmen are using? So we had a question earlier about what does this provisioning and what does this experience look like for a student? So we've got a couple of examples here of what your student would see on their phone when they go to provision their mobile credential. The first thing is the mobile credential requires our mobile application called eAccounts. Here in the middle of the screen where you see that it says Transact, that's an example of branding where you could brand it for your own school with your own logo, your own colors, and make it very school specific, and we certainly encourage that. So on the left, the student has first selected the school. Next, they'll see your branded image and the second one over. And that will get the eAccounts mobile application working on their phone. Now, they will log into the eAccounts mobile application using the username and password of your single sign-on system on campus. So when you assign those students a single username and password to log into all kinds of software on your campus, they will also use that same one to log into eAccounts. That's great for usability. It's one less username and password to forget. And it's also great for security because your own IT department can control and turn that access on and off. So that's great for security. But when you take the next step and use the mobile credential, there's an extra security step called multi-factor authentication. This multi-factor authentication is used one time. It's used when the student provisions that mobile credential into their wallet. And this is done to increase the security of the experience, to increase the odds that we know that the credential went into the correct wallet and not into the wrong person's wallet. Obviously, we want to, cybersecurity is a big focus for us, and this is just one example of a step we can take to improve that. Once they've done that, they will receive a mobile credential that goes into their Apple or Google wallet, like you see on the right. So now I'll show you a couple other screens. To drill into that in a little more specificity, on the left, you see the add card to wallet screen that a student will see. And once they add it to the wallet, then again, it is naturally in their wallet. And that lets them do a number of things. Number one, they can view their campus ID in the wallet. No different than a credit card or an airplane ticket that you might have in your own wallet. The Transact student ID is in there as well. And again, it's branded with your university colors and logos in there. And then the other one is they can present that to readers to gain access to things and to also to make purchases. Here we're showing you with the screen on, but again, there is an express mode that's commonly used, which allows the student to use the mobile credential without unlocking their phone at all. So going back to one of our earlier questions, though, about this provisioning experience, another feature that's it's a product that's not in this presentation, but is very commonly used with it, is called online photo submission. And with online photo submission, what happens is students, once they download the eAccounts app, can take a photo of themselves and send it to you for approval. So this can be their student ID photo, which they can take at their convenience. They don't need to stand in line, during orientation, which is of course painful for everyone. They can do it at 3 in the morning. Yet at the same time, you have the ability to review and approve those photos before it becomes their student ID. Because they can do all this on their phone, this means that your students can show up to campus with a mobile credential that's already provisioned and ready to use before they even show up for the first day of class or for orientation. So what's key there is the messaging and the instructions to the students prior to them showing up on campus, because they can do this before they even show up and have that step done. So we certainly encourage that. And then just as you saw at University of Alabama, throw out a quick test reader, let them test it during orientation to make sure everything's okay, and then you're off to the races and running. So also, while we're on this, we've got a couple other questions here. In the eAccounts mobile application, it does let you also add funds to your stored value account. So that's important because the students will, as their stored value declines, they're certainly going to want to add funds to that. It's great that they can do it within the eAccounts application. Now, as a note to you as an administrator, you have the configuration option to turn that on or off. So it's not mandatory that students are allowed to do that, but you are empowered to turn that on. And then also, the nice thing about this mobile credential is this stored value ecosystem can also interact with mobile ordering. So while it's not explicitly a function of the mobile credential, it is a factor of the stored value system. So what that does is that allows students to buy things in the mobile ordering application using your stored value system. So that's more revenue through your accounts. That allows you also to guide them into which vendors they're using on your campus. So last thing, a very big question that's commonly asked is about the preparation to adopt mobile credential and the implementation. And I think we're all aware that because there's a hardware interaction and it interacts with so many different pieces of software on your campus, there's certainly a lot of compatibility work that needs to be done, either planning or implementing some integrations. The good news is a lot of this work can be done prior to even adopting mobile credential or even signing a contract or even starting the implementation steps. And also a lot of this work has benefits for you. Even if you were to say never adopt a mobile credential, there's still benefits for you. So a couple of the common steps is make sure that all your software, in particular the Transact system, is updated to the most current version. That's something that can be scheduled and done at various times, and we'll certainly work with you. It's a great thing to have done prior to starting a mobile credential project, and a good practice anyhow. The second one is configuring eAccounts to support to support a multi-factor authentication and a web deposit. Our implementation team can help walk you through some of the specific steps on this. In terms of multi-factor, many schools enable multi-factor authentication as a feature in their identity management system. So as an example, it's very common in schools, you might have Duo brand identity management software. That's what allows students to log into all the different software on your campus. Multi-factor authentication is an extra feature of theirs that your IT department can turn on. In addition to that, while we realize that not all schools have rolled out multi-factor authentication to students yet, we do have a bridge solution that will be released shortly that will allow us to provide you with a multi-factor authentication solution for mobile credential that will last until you're able to implement multi-factor authentication within IT. The next one is standardizing on what we call ISO numbers for your credential numbers. ISO is an international standards organization, And the standards is a standard 16-digit number. So if you've seen on your credit cards, they always have a 16-digit number on there. That's an ISO standard. And basically what it does is you can register as a school to have your own ISO number. And what that means is the first 6 or 8 digits of that number will describe just your institution. And the last 8 or 10 will basically be a credential number. So this is a good practice to have regardless, but it's also a great preparation step that can be taken to enable mobile credential. Number 4 is really the biggest one. And there can certainly be some effort involved, but this is also where the benefit comes in and where and it's really critical to a smooth rollout. And with number 4, the step is to inventory all of your use cases on campus for your physical card. That's a little easier said than done, perhaps, because while I realize you probably know of 90% of the use cases, sometimes there can be those kind of corner case offices or departments that use it less. But finding those and inventorying those ahead of time is hugely important to a mobile credential implementation project. So in there, what's important is understand how are they using it. Maybe it's just a visual check, in which case the credential in the wallet will work just fine. Maybe it's integrated to some of their software. In that case, we just need to know what software it is. What readers are on it? Is there some readers already on it, or do we need to add some as part of the project? That's really key. So again, that's one of the best steps you can take to really accelerate the implementation of mobile credential. Is really it's a step number 4 is the biggest one, is inventorying all of your use cases and knowing what's out there. Then our implementation team can work with you to identify all the smallest details to make sure that the implementation can go smoothly and quickly according to plan. And then lastly, it's enabling the Apple Pay across your campus. There's a number of places where it can be used for vending, for concessions, for food purchases, and also as a form of payment. That is something we can also help you with to enable inside of e-accounts, because we do have that functionality today. We have it in our own point of sale system, as do many others. And also we have that for tuition payments. So again, that would be the 5th and the biggest and the final step in preparing for a mobile credential implementation. All right, so with that, I believe we are now ready for, last thing is, I should have thrown this in earlier, just as an awareness, the NFC forum gave us the award earlier this year for best in-market implementation using NFC technology. So that was great to have that recognition of the mobile credential, really wowing people across multiple disciplines and multiple product lines in terms of how it's utilized. So we're definitely very thankful for that award. All right. So with that in mind, we will now turn it over for questions to Jennifer.
All right, thank you, Scott. That was really awesome. So we have several questions coming in, and there's one that's kind of a little bit of a trend. Can you share a little bit of a difference between the mobile credential and the mobile ordering app solution?
Yes, so the mobile ordering application is a different application than e-accounts. And that is an active application that a student would open up to place orders for food to vendors on your campus. It can interact with our stored value system, so they can use your campus bucks or your dining dollars to place those orders. That is actually separate from a mobile credential. The mobile credential in its purest form is basically a card that goes in your phone's wallet. So it's somewhat akin to a credit card, if you will. So again, to kind of summarize, there's basically 3 different pieces of technology there. There's a mobile ordering application, there's an e-accounts application, and then there's the mobile credential that actually goes in the wallet.
Perfect. All right, so the next question is, and I'm trying to read through all of these wonderful things. Let's say you're using the mobile credential to purchase things of that nature, and maybe you also have a campus that has the mobile ordering app. If they do not have enough funds in their account at checkout, what happens next? Do you have to then stop and reload? Do you have different options that are available to linking everything?
Yeah, so there's a couple of options there. Number one is depending on how your campus has configured the stored value accounts, there may be multiple accounts upon which that particular merchant can draw. In that case, our software will simply go down the list you've configured. And if the first fund doesn't have enough money, then it will go on to the next stored value account. But let's say that that is fully exhausted. Yes, again, you have the ability to configure within within e-accounts. You can configure the option for your students to reload in the app, and then they can complete the transaction. The other thing is the mobile credential will display your stored account values to the student. So when they make a purchase, that fund will be decremented, and the credential in their wallet will be updated. So this gives students a very easy way to see the balance in their account, so they can know that it's time to top it off before they even get in that position.
Fantastic. All right, next question. Do you have a requirement that 100% of the credential readers need to be Transact NFC readers? And would that include the door readers, electronic locks, laundry, vending, etc.?
Yeah, so I'll break that question into two pieces, the 100% and the Transact part. The 100% is, the answer is no. There is now the ability to time phase in your use case across campus. What that means is let's say that when you initially go live, the mobile credential can work at 70% of the applications across campus. We can work with Apple to get an approval for that. That approval does require that there's a plan to get to 100% over time. But the nice part is you don't have to be 100% compatible right away to launch a mobile credential. Now, I think you'll find that you'll want to get to 100% pretty quickly, because otherwise you're in that dual credential mode, or potentially. So I think you'll want to get there quickly, but there is not a requirement to be at 100% right out of the gate any longer. We can work with you on time-based phasing. The second question is the Transact readers. We are increasingly working with a number of technology partners you saw on previous slides, so that our mobile credential works with a variety of brands of hardware. As an example, for door readers, initially we worked only with Transact door readers because it was a totally new technology, so we had to develop the whole solution. But since that time, we're now compatible with Allegiant wall readers. We're compatible with some HID, soon to be more wall readers, and also compatible with a couple of brands of wireless locks. So that mobile credential can work with a variety of vendors of hardware. Also in terms of print and copy, for example, you saw in the slide earlier where we're now compatible with ELITech readers. And that's important because ELITech is a very popular vendor of readers for copy print. These are things that can be purchased from your copy and print provider, excuse me, and installed by them. So you don't even have to buy those from Transact, yet we've got compatibility, so it can be, it's closer to a plug and play. So increasingly, that it's very important to Transact that we're expanding the hardware compatibility mobile credential to more and more of the vendors that are already on your campus.
Okay. Let me go through really quickly. Let's see, a few more questions just kind of about the readers, but I think you answered all of those. So then the next question I have that we actually had submitted prior to this, in one of the previous slides, you kind of showed the student implementation rates and how that's kind of higher. Are you seeing some different universities finding new or unique cases for using the mobile credential and being able to then improve student satisfaction?
Yes, the mobile credential, one of the ways we see this done is that because there's a variety of readers that can read this credential and decrypt it, it can integrate to a number of third-party systems. In some cases, we even see campuses creating some of their own custom systems. So they may have a very specialized need. For example, you need to check out your gown for the senior graduation. That is something that can be configured through both a combination of the Transact product or possibly in also some custom development on campus. We have the ability to do that one, for example, within Transact software, but we've also heard of campuses who might customize that with a little bit of their own software. So that's a great opportunity because they can read that credential at the front line where they're interacting with the student, write some software to perform logic, and then interact with Transact on the back end to get more information on that student so they can make a decision in whatever that special application is. So even though there's a lot of standard off-the-shelf products and integrations, there's nothing that limits this from being used in a lot of more creative and custom ways.
Perfect. All right, next question. I'm kind of talking a little bit about provisioning. Let's see, wanting to just have a little bit more clarification that iPhone, Android, Apple Watch are able to be provisioned. Is there a way to kind of limit the number of devices that a student would provision?
So to answer the first part of the question, yes, the mobile credential works on 3 device types, which is Android phones, Apple phones, and also Apple Watches. What we found is that meets the overwhelming number of use cases among students. There's obviously other devices out there that are capable of doing this, but the adoption rate at the student population, what we found, even from those manufacturers, is extremely low. The second part of the question was about limiting the number of devices for a particular customer or student. With Android, they're allowed 1 phone per person. In Apple, they're allowed two devices, a phone and a watch. With Apple, though, one of the things we are looking at, we have not done yet, is being sure to limit it to purely 1 phone, because that 2 device limit implies that it's possible to have 2 phones, and we do not want that. So we're working through that one with Apple to have that same limitation that exists today on Android. And again, the purpose of that is for security. I don't think any of us want too many credentials floating around campus that are live and can be used. So we would like to make that change on Apple as well.
Okay, next question. Kind of a question about the access control integration. Can you integrate with on-premise systems and cloud access control systems such as Key or OpenPath?
Yes, the cloud one is the easiest of them, because this ACI is a cloud-based, it's a SaaS API system. So having a cloud-to-cloud integration such as to OpenPath is obviously something that is relatively easy to do. It's well within the bounds of current technology. On-premise can work just as well, but the architecture is a little bit different. For security reasons, you will typically want an on-premise application to dial out to our cloud service so that your IT department doesn't get rightfully concerned about having an inbound port on their firewall open. So it accomplishes the same functionality. It's just a little different software architecture when ACI is integrated to either on-premise or cloud-based access control software.
Perfect. And then another question that we had sent in beforehand. Since the beginning, there's been changes in the way that mobile credential has been implemented on campus. How is it different from the beginning, to now since these initial rollouts?
I think that now that there are so many campuses that have seen it run live and seen the reliability of it and seeing how that really impresses students, that I think that there is a lot more confidence to launch an entirely new technology much faster, rather than doing a little more conservative piecemeal approach. So I think the biggest thing that's changed is simply that over time, the time has given a lot of people the confidence to roll it out even faster than they might have when it was brand new.
All right, thank you. If I am not seeing any other questions, so I am going to turn it back over to you, Scott and John.
All right. Well, thank you very much for everyone's time and attention. John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks, Jennifer. That was a really informative presentation. You really covered a lot of questions today. So I hope everybody Really got a lot out of the presentation. Thanks for your attention today. Our schedule of virtual events is posted online. Please check out our website at www.nacu.org. Again, special thanks to Scott Dennison from Transact, as well as Jennifer Peyote. I'm John Ogle with NACU. Enjoy your day. Thanks.